You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode, a very special episode, the 2024 finale of the Hoop Genius podcast, brought to you by NBA 2K25. As always, I am Mooncey. Alongside me, the three-time NBA champion, Mr. BJ Armstrong. Our other guest, the one and only GM extraordinaire, Mr. Scott Perry. And we've got another special guest to see out 2024 the right way. And I'm going to tell you guys a story. You see, when it comes to this NBA media business, I'm the flyest in every room I walk into. I know Stephen A's gonna be mad when he hears that. Okay. But he an old head. I'm the flyest in every room I walk into. You know, BJ, you see me when we do TV. I got the
Right.
like the black turtleneck going on with the blades and the gold chain with some retro J's. But then I pulled up at the NBA finals.
Mm.
This brother was
Mm.
looking flyer than me. Welcome to the
Who?
show, Mr. Chris Haynes. He came with
Who?
an
Who?
all-white suit. He came with an
Yeah.
all-white suit. He came with the white Jordan 11s. I said, who's
Is
this
it-
guy? What's he doing?
Exactly.
Give me my
Hey,
flow.
that's only
Hey.
one game, Mo. That's only one game, man. I know how to
Yeah.
spread my attire out. I can't do it through a whole season, but every now and then I can pop out on you.
Hey, you got to.
Yeah.
You got to. You got
Hey,
to.
hey, man, Chris couldn't let you come to the States and show him up now. Come on. Now.
Not doing the final, Scott. Not doing the
Exactly. No,
finals.
come on now. Exactly.
So,
Thanks for having me on. Yeah.
no, we're super excited to have Chris on the show. You guys will recognize him from all the stuff that he does on TV and all the other great media work that he's been doing. So, we got a real NBA insider on the show. So, we're
Say
going to
that
see
again.
what Chris has to say. Chris, where in the world are you coming to us from today?
I'm in Sacramento. That's where I'm based at these days. So I always tell people my house is here based in Sac, but I'm often on the road somewhere else. So, but I'm home for right now.
Okay, because we had a big discussion about the Kings on yesterday's show.
Uh-oh.
And I wanted you to weigh in on it. You know, what's the mood like there over in Sacramento? And you hear things around the league, so we wanted to get your take on it. We're going to start off hot right here with the Kings.
Yeah, really strange. The way things have transpired over the last couple of weeks, I should say. There are a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that have yet to surface about why this happened. And the things that I've heard, some things I can share, some things I'm not willing to share at this time. But the things that I've heard still just don't make sense of why you remove Mike Brown, a guy who has been very instrumental in turning this franchise around, just the vibes that he has provided for this team, the organizational shift into respectability, and he is at the helm of orchestrating that. Coach of the year, his first year in Sacramento. Second year, they were a top six team in the Western Conference standings for most of the period, most of the season. They dealt with some injuries toward the latter part of the season. Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles. They take out the Golden State Warriors in the play-in game, something that is very big and significant for that organization and for the owner of Vivek, who we all know, he looks at Golden State, he wants to take them down. And then they ended up losing to the New Orleans Pelicans and not making it to the playoffs. But nonetheless, still a very successful season. And then you go into this year where they acquired DeMar DeRozan, where I know, there were people that were kind of have mixed views on whether DeMar DeRozan would be a good fit with the Sacramento Kings. This is the Kings squad that likes to run, push the pace. They want, how should I say this? There is emphasis. There is a strong emphasis to make sure that the Kings push the pace, that they are one of the top teams in offense. And so when you add a guy like DeMar DeRozan, who is a phenomenal player, maybe a Hall of Fame player when his career is all said and done, but you look at the way that he plays, it's a half court set. You slow the tempo down. And so, there's been a little bit of a conflict there. And so it's not just him, but again, I know there was things that the Kings wanted to happen. When I mean Kings, I'm talking about the higher ups that the Kings wanted to happen that just didn't happen. And, some of those things I'm not ready to share right now. But even with that being said, I still cannot find a rhyme or reason why Mike Brown was let go at this stage of the season, especially when they didn't allow for the team to make a trade first, then to see, okay, now can these pieces work? Now can we fit DeMar in a little bit better? And there was a word out there that DeMar DeRozan at one point was asked, not too recently, was asked to come off the bench by Mike Brown. I believe that to be true. So, there were things that were going on behind the scenes that still haven't reached the light of day as of right now. But still, with that being said, Mike Brown did not deserve to be let go. He was a scapegoat.
De'Aaron Fox took to Twitter to address the report that Mike Brown asked DeMar DeRozan to come off the bench. De'Aaron Fox said there was never any pushback about anything. This narrative of us butting heads or me going to management saying anything is BS. So you can run with that if you want to. So I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. It all feels like chaos. Scott, as you know, a recent GM in this league, I want to ask you, if you were in the hot seat in Sacramento and you were running that team, would you have thought it was time to part ways with Mike Brown, or would you have kept it rolling until the trade deadline or the end of the season at least?
Look, again, we talked about this yesterday. Not being there, I don't know all of the inner workings, but from the outside looking in, absolutely not. I mean, just as the points Chris just brought up, the guy's been coach of the year. And I'm old enough to remember when Mike Brown first started as a head coach in Cleveland years ago. So I've watched him grow and mature as a head coach in this league at various stops. And, watching him from afar in Sacramento, I thought he was doing an excellent job. He brought some stability and credibility. And he knew, from what I know about Mike and then listening to his press conferences, this team was going to have to get better defensively. And they needed personnel to do that. So as the leader of the franchise, when you're a GM or president, that is incumbent upon me and my staff to go out and make a move or two to see what we can give this coach to help him win. Because obviously he's proven himself there that he's very competent and he's one of the better coaches in the NBA, in my opinion. And so that was a difficult thing for me. And if you're going to make this decision, and we talked about this again yesterday, let's hear why. So we haven't heard anything. Again, when you sign up for these leadership positions, you got to go to the microphone in both good and difficult times. You can't just show up when everything is going good. You got to show up when it's going, not so good, and be able to explain. So not having heard anything other than a 1 or 2 line statement, you really don't know what was behind the decision. To Chris' point, Chris lives there in Sacramento and he covers the team. But, from outside looking in, you just don't know. And I definitely would have given Mike Brown an opportunity. I think he earned and deserved that, just given his recent history in Sacramento, that he needed to be able to see this thing through, at least through the remainder of this season, after moves are made, and see where, this team lands come April. So,
BJ, in your experience as a player and now as an agent for NBA players, when decisions like this happen within an organization, because we heard rumblings throughout the season so far that De'Aaron Fox may potentially be wanting to get out of Sacramento. When decisions like this are made, if the players aren't included in this decision-making process, your superstar player of your franchise, as De'Aaron is alluding to in the tweet that he put out, how much can that affect, whether a player wants to be with a franchise moving forwards and if they see it as the best fit for their career? Do you see any potential fallout from this in the long term of their star players looking around at the organization and thinking they're going to be a better fit elsewhere in the league?
One of the things that you come to realize as you have experience in this league is that, the 4 powers that be, the ownership group, the executives, okay, then you have the head coach and you have the players. You come to realize as you become more experienced and you mature in this business, the following. You don't want to, you clearly don't want to leave your players out to dry. And you don't want to leave your players when you have difficult times to have to answer a question that puts them in an uncomfortable position. And also you come to realize that the more experienced teams or groups in this league, they take that responsibility so that the players don't have to get up to the microphone and answer a difficult question like that without the support of the entire group or the narrative, that needs to be played. We call that, you stand on point, or you stand on, the narrative that you want to get out there to the media. So, for instance, when you saw all of that stuff come out with Golden State, they just didn't leave the players. Okay, even in a more difficult time, like the situation with Draymond, what he's had, and they've had various things. That's one thing I've always admired about Raymond Ritter here, who works with the Golden State Warriors. Chris, I'm sure Scott knows him as well.
Mm-hmm.
They do an excellent job of staying on point of whatever they have coming out, so that the players are never left to dry or answer a more difficult question. This situation, the first time I heard anything about what was going on, and I think it was Scott who alluded to it, they just kind of left De'Aaron Fox out there to answer these more difficult questions with nothing to say. Now, there seems to be a disconnect there. Now, I don't know what's going on. I'm not pretending to know, but that had to be a very uncomfortable situation for him to answer these questions.
Absolutely.
And now that alone could be something that we should continue to watch within this group and this team, because we've seen this happen. And for the most part, we know how these situations end when things like that happen. So again, looking from the far, I'm not pretending to know. I haven't made any calls on that behalf, but those are situations that I always look out for, because every organization faces a difficult time. That's, that's just part of the business that we're in. However, how you handle those situations, to me, determines how you move forward, because you got to keep it moving. So, I think Chris is probably will have more of an insider view than I do when it comes to something like that. But when you hear players taking on the first question to answer the why without the organization having anything to say beforehand, then that's when my antennas go up to say, okay, what's really going on here? And then I think we all can agree that this is kind of an awkward situation. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out from here.
Let me just add one line. When you're in leadership, you got to run to problems, not run away from them.
Say that again, Scott. Tell them again.
Let that resonate. You got to run to the problem instead of running away from the problem. Okay.
And Mo, let me add this, Mo. let me add two things I want to add. There were talks about Mike Brown. I guess people use the word calling out De'Aaron Fox after certain games, or even maybe even Sabonis to a certain extent after some tough losses. This is what I can add on that. I was told Mike Brown met with De'Aaron and his wife before the season started and informed him that, listen, in order for this team to get a full buy-in, he believes that he needs to ratchet it up as far as like being able to call out De'Aaron publicly, that is. And De'Aaron understood that. And the reason Mike wanted to do that was to set an example to where his teammates saw that, oh, Mike Brown goes at his challenges, his top player. De'Aaron responds correctly. Everybody else has to fall in line because the top player is doing that. And so I was told that there was a great communication between Mike Brown, De'Aaron Fox, and they still have a great relationship to this day. So I wanted to say that. Another thing I want to add, I don't know that if this is being told or whatnot, but it just speaks to how this all came about in such a strange and bizarre way, in a strange twist. Mike Brown's last practice, they had that tough loss, right? And so right before, it wasn't even a practice. It was a film session and then a walkthrough shoot around. And then they were to head to the airport and go face Los Angeles the next day. Anyways, right before film session, the walkthrough, Mike Brown and the coaching staff, they're in the coach's office, and general manager Monty McNair walks in, and they're chatting, conversation as usual, it's business as usual, chopping it up on whatever was spoke about. That was it. But there was nothing that led you to believe that this was going to be a bizarre day. And so that happens. There's a film session. There's walkthrough practice. Then Mike Brown addresses the media. And so after that, Mike Brown hops in his car, is getting ready to head to the airport, and he receives a call from Monty McNair. And so what I take from that, again, I'm just trying to put as much out as I possibly can. What I take from that is I believe, this is me, this is my belief. I'm not throwing out anything concrete, but my belief is if the plan was for Mike Brown to be fired, I think it would have happened when the front office walked into the coach's room right before film session and the walkthrough, and Mike Brown, handling media responsibilities. It seemed like something happened. Something happened from the time front office went into that office, from film to walkthrough to media. Something around that time, something happened. I don't know. I don't know if an order was given. I don't know. I have no clue. But it seemed like some decision was made along that timeline, which led to Mike Brown being relieved of his duty. So I just wanted to put those two things out. And that's why I say this is just a really bizarre twist. And I just think it was so undeserving for a guy who made such a strong turnaround for an organization in a short amount of time.
That is very, very odd because, the reports came out that the decision was entirely down to Monty McNair, the general manager. So either he just fake as hell, pretending everything's cool with Mike Brown, knowing he's going to fire him later in the day, or like you said, something happened. Someone sent a message. Someone came to him and told him that this is what's going to be, or it's all lies and the order came from elsewhere. But if I had to ask you guys, if you were to go around the league, which coach do you think has the most job security out of all 30 organizations in the NBA?
Wow.
Because I think there's an obvious answer here.
Yeah, no. I'm going to say Eric Spoelstra.
Because even when they say LeBron wanted to get rid of him, he's stayed.
Yeah. And just because it's who the Heat are, the culture. Obviously, Pat Riley is at the top of the chain there with the owner, Mickey Arison. And they have preached, lived an example of consistency and stability. They believe in that. And I read a quote from Eric Spoelstra the other day when he was talking about this Mike Brown firing. I guess a lot of coaches obviously get asked about this kind of thing. And he said one of the key things that happened in Miami, look, when you go through the tough times, that's when you stick with your people. And that's what they've done at Miami. And obviously he appreciates that as a coach. When you know that, and when you can go in the locker room and just look around and say, look, it's on us in here. It's nothing outside. There's no mystical firing and hiring of somebody. It's up to us to get this thing corrected. And that means everybody in their respective areas, and BJ named them all, ownership, executives, coaches, and players, go home and look in the mirror. How about that as a novel concept? And say, okay, what can I do to get better? You know what I'm saying?
This is my point.
So, and that's what they do.
Like
exactly.
In sports organizations across almost every sport, I feel there is something to be said for having consistency across, whether it's your players and building with a solid group of players and making changes around the margins, or consistency in the front office, consistency in the coaching. And we live in a world now where there's always a scapegoat. There's always someone to blame. Oh, we didn't make it out the first round. This player is to blame. We've got to trade him. Oh, we didn't make it to where we wanted to make it. This coach is the problem. But this is what I like about the Miami Heat is even when things weren't working well, they kept Eric Spoelstra. Now you can see pretty unanimously around the world, he's known as one of the best basketball coaches on earth. But something happened that we haven't spoken about with the Miami Heat, and I feel like Chris can give some great insight on this as well, is Pat Riley came out and released a statement just last week saying we don't usually comment on rumors, but all this speculation has become a distraction to the team and it's not fair to the players and coaches. Therefore, we will make it clear we are not trading Jimmy Butler. Because, of course, Shams has been putting out reports that it's a weird report that Jimmy would be open to a trade. Not that Jimmy's asked for a trade, just that he wouldn't be against it, which is, I don't know if that's news. But the Heat have come out with this statement. Is this a chess move in terms of driving up his value, or is this for real? They're going to stand pat because he didn't sign the extension this season, and they're going to roll with Jimmy for another year. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's easy to surmise when a player of Jimmy Butler's caliber is entering the final season of his deal, and you aren't sure about his future, his long-term plans with the organization. I think then it's easy to come away with the conclusion that there could be some fireworks behind the scenes and that something could be happening in the immediate future, whether that be the trade deadline or before that. But we never heard. So I can say going into training camp, one team that I heard that was really interested in Jimmy Butler, and that was the Golden State Warriors. That was one team that was really trying to find ways of putting something together. Nothing never materialized. The Miami Heat, I will say that was a bit out of character for the Miami Heat, for them to release a statement. Because one thing that I know, so as a reporter, when you break a story, so there are stories that you would break. Okay, there's a signing coming. This player is being traded. Things like that. Those type of reports are going to be confirmed by the teams relatively soon. So it's only a matter of time before, okay, it's going to be official. But then then there's reports about, something that it might be taking place behind the scenes, but it's not going to materialize. It's probably not going to be finalized. And when you put those type of reports out, those reports linger. They have a longer shelf life. And then it can cause some drama within the team, the culture. It can just cause all type of problems, depending on how negative the report is. But one thing that I've known, if I ever put out a report like that, or when I do, I can count on the Miami Heat being one of the teams that will not say anything. Those are one like the Miami Heat, San Antonio Spurs. Maybe the Golden State Warriors, but those are teams that I know, regardless if they like it or not, they're not going to worry about it. But what this showed me was that this was so much of a distraction and I take it that it was a distraction not just for the locker room, but Jimmy Butler himself. And so, I think they felt it was time to say something, and they did. Now, does that mean he's not going to be traded by the deadline? I don't know if it means that. But I think, when you will put a report out, that's one thing, Scott, BJ, Mo, like the aggregation era of social media is that you can report one thing,
Speak on it.
but then the aggregations, they take it to a whole other level. They start taking it like, you report that, all right, Jimmy Butler could be open to a trade. Mo, to your point, yeah, I mean, probably 90% of the league players can be open to a trade. But then it's like once aggregation hits, by the next day, it's Jimmy Butler has requested a trade. It just took on a totally different notion. And so I think we had something like that take place on the Miami front, and it took on a life of its own.
Preach, Chris. He's talking from the pulpit. I think he's in a pulpit in front of me. He's preaching now. He's preaching now. Okay, go ahead. I like it.
No giggles over here.
Exactly. Hey, Chris, we have a saying here: real name, no gimmicks on the show. Okay,
exactly.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just got a masterclass from someone who's in the business. And I just want to have a follow-up, Chris, since you in this moment of just keeping it just so real that, we are speechless. When people start talking the way you just spoke here, please go re-listen to that segment. Okay, please.
So someone go put the ETH instrumental underneath it.
Please go But Chris, can you speak the difference in this era between reporting and journalism?
Oh boy!
Just give it because Chris, you are one of the few people that has, you and I have had for years.
Yes,
and you've always been able to navigate this new world, and I know you understand it. Can you just give our audience a 2-minute description from a master? Someone who's in the business, because there's so many young people that want to be in the business.
Yeah, we get messages all the time from kids who want to do what you're doing.
You do. And Chris, you are an inspiration because you've had to deal with Scott in professional manners. Clearly, you guys have a relationship. You and I trade rumors and breaking stories. Can you just do that for us, Chris? And then I'm gonna hand you the mic, and I'm just gonna sit on the sideline because you right now.
Yeah.
And I'll say this: for y'all who don't know, Chris is also a master chef. So we got to talk about food and cooking before we get off the show.
I didn't know. Hey, Chris is the master chef.
Hey, he's
Scott,
trying to steal my whole flow.
Exactly.
So go ahead. Let's get back. I don't want to get distracted. Go ahead, Chris. Just give us a difference between journalism and reporting.
Okay, so I will say, let's take, for example, the story we talked about, Jimmy Butler, where you may report something that could happen, could not happen, but it's possibly being talked about behind the scenes. So the reason why I mentioned about there are teams, majority of teams probably aren't going to say anything, pertaining to that. And so when there are, let me see, there are young professionals, and they don't have to be young professionals. They can be someone who's a veteran, but might be new to the reporting game, because journalism, not everybody, that's a journalist can break news, can report. So I want to make that clear. But what can happen is, say you're given, somebody calls you. You can be a young professional, because it happened to me early in my career, where you're a young professional, you're eager to, be put on the map. You're eager to showcase your skill set, to show that you should be respected, you should be trustworthy, right? And you're eager to just be on the map of the reporting game. Because back then, I ain't gonna say back then, no disrespect, HoopsHype. So when I came in, 2010 was my first year in the league. And Scott, BJ, I don't know if y'all still watch HoopsHype, but yeah. I was told when I first came in.
This is what I grew up on, Chris.
There you go.
Yeah,
so
that was Follow HoopsHype.
HoopsHype. I was told that all the general managers and owners, they go to that site every day. And one thing that this site had, and I don't know if any of you guys remember or if you even bothered to know about it, but they used to have a list of reporters and how many stories that they broke. So if you had a story, right, and HoopsHype, they would make, if your story was the biggest story that day, on HoopsHype, their front page, it would be your story, highlighted by you. And they would compile a list of reporters who had the most stories. And so I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like, man, wow, I want to make this list, because I'm trying to, make myself known. But anyways, as a young professional, you would have people feeding you stuff, right? And it would be juicy, and it would be some of the reports. It may be a report similar to that of Jimmy Butler, where you might, you really can't be proven wrong unless somebody else comes out and denies it. You really can't be proven right, because it's something that's happening behind the scenes. It may happen, it may not. But anyways, most of the time, if you put a report out there like that, it's going to be big. It's going to be aggregated. You might be asked to come on some TV shows to talk about it, come on radio shows to talk about. So while you're getting the buzz and praise for it, the real people in the know, the GMs, the agents, the owners, know you're a fraud. They know, because they aren't talking. They're not doing anything, And so I stepped into shoes like that, where I had to, when I did become something, I had somebody like BJ Armstrong, Scott Perry, other general managers and agents hold me accountable early on. Hey, young fella, that wasn't right. I'm gonna let you know. I'm not gonna call you out. I'm not gonna put a statement out, but you weren't right. And so I had to hold myself accountable, because at the end of the day, while I did want to make myself known, I had to understand that I can't just run with everything that I hear just because it's juicy and I can put it out and create a big buzz. I want to be someone that's trustworthy, respected. And now, once I took on and tried to mirror that, that's when I started getting my stories, legitimate stories, breaking news, breaking trades, breaking signings, whatever. And so that's the difference. It's that, everybody is eager to make a name for themselves, to put stuff out there, especially with social media, where you can just throw things out there and it sticks and aggregation hits and do whatever. But, you know, I look at a lot of these reports that hit and I know automatically that it's BS. And at the end of the day, if you're just trying to make your name, if you're trying to become something, you're going to have the respect of those decision makers because they know that you're putting BS out there.
You know, one thing I wanted to add, because I mean, we could do a whole show on this because, you know, obviously I have a great perspective for this.
Especially from New York.
Hey, you say that again. But you know, I always look for, you know, and you touched on it, Chris, responsibility. Because when I came into the seat, in the executive seat, one thing I respected and knew is, and because I'm gonna give everybody a chance. But there's a lot of entities that make this basketball thing go. We talked about it from the team side, you know, owners, presidents, executives, players, coaches, and, you know, all support staff. But the media is a part of the team as well too, in my opinion. You got to look, and I know some people, and Chris, I know you've felt this. A lot of people look at the media and they look at them as enemies all the way, you know. And I don't think that that's fair because look, these people have a job to do. And without the media attention, the game doesn't grow, and a lot of the things that are available to all the people to work on the team side wouldn't be the same if media wasn't there to cover and enhance what everybody is seeing. But it is important to me, and you know, this is where I got to know Chris and people like Chris, where you can have conversations offline, I think that are hugely important, that can be beneficial to both sides. To be able to explain, okay, here's what we're thinking when we're going into these things. And some things you don't want, you know, and you can decipher what's public and not to be public. And then obviously you're going to do your public press conference as well too. But you build relationships just like anything else. And the responsible reporting, and I get it, you know, this is where social media, I think, is really impacted. We're in a world where the race to be first is more important than the race to be right. And that is the frustration that you have to deal with as an executive. And Chris touched on all that, is that, okay, there's so much noise that's going on out here. And a lot of it, you know, internally is just that noise and it's not true, but you have to deal with it from the executive side. Your players got to deal with it. And that's what it's important, that you got to have strong internal communication inside to help diffuse that. And then, but also have the relationships abroad within the media space and media world that you can get on the phone and say, hey, you know, that wasn't right. That was right. Call me before, you know, the responsible journalist will take the time to really find out from the teams, the agent, the player, what's real and not real. So I just wanted to add that context.
Yeah, I think,
True.
You know, for me, in my career in the media, you know, what you're saying about the aggregation, I once tweeted out, you know, I got a call, and this was when Ben Simmons was in Philly, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got a call, and you know, Ben saying that he would really enjoy playing with Luka, and you know, if he got traded to the Dallas Mavericks, he wouldn't be mad at it. So I've tweeted out, Ben Simmons says he would be open to a trade to the Dallas Mavericks. And I've thought nothing of it, right? Because I'm not big time like Chris, you know what I mean? I just live my life.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I'm still small time. But I woke up the next morning and all the things say, Ben Simmons demands trade to Mavericks. Ben Simmons wants to join Dallas. Dallas interested in trading. And I'm like, no, just read what I said instead of just reading the names and aggregating. So after that, anytime I get info, I just really don't say anything now. I just keep it to myself. And unless it's like a done deal. But the media world in which we live now, as you said, Scott, everyone wants to be first. And I think we see that on draft night every year, because I ain't going to say names, but there are some people out there who are in such a rush to tweet which draft pick is being taken by which team, like 5 seconds before it's announced on TV, because they want the clout on social media. And oftentimes it's wrong. And then you have the whole discussion about media outlets who are run or sponsored by betting companies and how they can use the media to manipulate market odds. For example, the draft where they had Paolo Banchero and Jabari Smith Jr. and Chet Holmgren, and they're talking about who's going to be the number one pick right before the draft happens. and some fake info was maybe put out there as a real report by certain people in order to potentially, allegedly manipulate gambling markets. So it's a slippery slope. So shout out to all the reporters who keep their journalistic integrity, I think is the key word here.
Yeah,
And
no
and
question.
really, really do it for real. But it has been a crazy year in the NBA. So I want to just go around and ask you guys, what moment stands out to you the most from 2024? Whether it was a moment, BJ, I know you like to stay on the court, so whether it was a particular game, a particular performance, or whether it was a trade that kind of shocked you, or whether it was a move or a signing. So BJ, let's start with you with what was your moment?
These guys,
24?
these
No,
guys.
no,
No. We
I'm-
gotta do yours first because they're gonna say stuff and you're gonna say Mo. You know me, I like to keep it on the court. So Wembanyama. So let's get yours out of the way first, and then we'll go to the other guys.
Okay. What was one of the most bizarre things, good, bad, or indifferent, that I saw this year? God, that's a tough one. I really don't know. I'm really intrigued by this whole Mike Brown situation. Like, it's just intriguing to me.
Hey, BJ tripped you up, Mo. He's going straight off the court now. Exactly.
Yeah. BJ, come on, what happened to your principles, man? Stay on the court.
I didn't say. I'm just intrigued about that. How decisions are being made. Like, if there's anything in the NBA that's really got me going right now, is I'm intrigued about how all 30 teams play the same exact way. Like, I'm really intrigued how the 3-point shot, how did this come to be? How did we all get here?
But do you know what's interesting about that, BJ? Is the 3-point shot has been rising in prevalence, but I don't know if you guys saw the thing I sent you the other day.
Yeah.
This season is the first season in which a 3-point shot and a 2-point shot are now actually worth the same amount of points, if that makes sense, because of the volume of which threes are being taken and the percentage of which they're being hit. So in the previous, last 10 years, while 3-point attempts are going up and up and up, the 3-point shot was always more valuable than a 2-point shot, just mathematically. But now we've reached a point where teams are shooting so many threes that if you're really going to go by the analytics, a 3 and a 2 are now worth the same thing because of the way teams are defending the 3-point line.
Right.
I'm gonna tell you what BJ really saying right now. Man, if he was playing today, he'd be getting 5 extra threes. Career 43% free throw shooting. His average would have been higher. I know who you played with. Exactly.
I played with a guy.
Exactly.
I played with a guy of my own heart.
Exactly.
Now, he would pass the ball strategically to keep the defense honest. But I wasn't getting 5 extra shots because that's because of the mindset. It's a different mindset.
You know what's crazy? I was in a sneaker store recently, looking at some shoes, and some guy comes up to me talking about the shoes that I was looking at, and he had an American accent. I said, "Where are you from?" He said, "I'm from Chicago," and he's like, "Yeah, I'm a huge Bulls fan. He loves Jordan, so on and so forth." I said, "What do you know about BJ Armstrong?" And this guy was like, yo, because obviously he didn't expect, just because he didn't know who I was. He was just some guy in the shop. He's like, yo, how you know BJ was my favorite player, man? Yo, if BJ played today, he'd be scoring 30 points a night. And he just went off on this whole thing of like, yo, man, if you give him the ball in the corner, it's money. And I'm just like, no, I wish I recorded this.
That's what I remember growing up watching the Bulls play. BJ had those corner threes. He had those on lock.
Just go back and look at the numbers. The year that MJ stepped away and started playing baseball, look at the shot attempts the next year though.
BJ got an all-star appearance.
Exactly.
I will say this about this group here. Scott was a scorer. And really, people don't notice. Chris Haynes is an athletic scorer.
Exactly. I've seen Chris play on the court though.
Exactly.
I don't know how much passing Chris is laughing. I don't know how much passing he do in them games.
Exactly.
I know he put that ball in the basket now.
We see those jerseys he's got in the background.
Yes.
We put that ball in the basket.
Scoring
and they shoot it Very frequently.
Exactly.
There you go. There you go. Nah, B, I think when you talk, you said, the 3-point shot and how that's become so, prevalent over the last, decade it's been
Right.
going, it's been, going up and up. To me, dribble handoffs, there's a ton of dribble handoffs nowadays, ton of dribble handoffs. It speaks to your point about everybody is running the same thing. And I remember when Golden State came out and started playing their way. Props to Mark Jackson, how he, started that thing, and Steve Kerr took it to another level. But, it seemed like everybody was trying to copy Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors and what they did, and the Houston Rockets, James Harden. And it seemed like that's when the trend started, when everybody started to try to play the same way. And BJ, I saw a clip, I look at these clips, man. These clips, I told B, you got to put me on the show, man, because I'm seeing these clips pop up all the time. It's always BJ and Scott making a point. And BJ talked about, it was a clip about 3-point shooting. And, it's good to, it's good if you got the personnel to be able to play that way. But shoot, 90% of these teams don't have the personnel, don't have the shooters to play so. And so, and you talk about the decline of ratings and just the viewing pleasure being so diminished. I think it's because of that. Everybody's trying to play one way, but don't have the personnel. But the one thing that I found, I was taken back a little bit by this past season. I would just say the Knicks Minnesota trade. I knew the Knicks were trying to unload Julius Randle. I knew that. It took me by surprise when the Minnesota Timberwolves pulled the trigger and let go of Karl Anthony Towns. I didn't see that. Automatically, I assumed that the Knicks got over. Automatically, I assumed that the Knicks got over on that deal, that they won it. And then as time has gone by, I think my assumption still stands corrected. Even though Julius is playing much better,
DiVincenzo's starting to play a little bit better now too.
He is. Dante as well. Yeah, Dante as well. He's a big piece. I know the Knicks didn't want to let him go, but Dante had to be a part of that. Minnesota requested that, demanded that, I should say. But yeah, that was probably the most puzzling deal that I can, off the top of my head, that I can witness, think about for the last, in 2024.
Yeah, I think that was a financial thing from the Timberwolves side of, they've got to pay Nas Reed, they want to pay Nickeil Alexander-Walker, they don't want to pay Lux Jackson. The whole thing is confusing.
That's Cat, though. That's Cat. I understand those other guys. I understand. This is Cat.
Yeah, and this is your number one pick who's been with your franchise his whole time. And it's also weird because you're coming off a season where you took out the defending champions. Like most people had Denver coming out the West again. And then you got to the conference finals. You don't often see teams blowing it up after reaching the conference finals. So I hear what you're saying. Scott,
and
what about
spacing? And it's spacing. Minnesota, Sacramento, kind of similar, They brought in a very accomplished player, star players. Spacing is messed up, Sacramento and Minnesota. So they're both dealing with that.
Well, Mo, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I must say, I got to go back to June of 2024 and the Celtics getting over the hump. And here's why. Having been a part of an organization that got to win a championship when I was with the Detroit Pistons for all those years, there's nothing like finally getting over the hump. But kind of bumping on the way to getting over the hump, you bumping your head, you're getting knocked out first round, second round, conference finals. And we watched this with this Celtics team. They had went all the way to the finals and lost to a Golden State team, I believe, back in 22. So to see Jason Tatum in particular and Jaylen Brown, who people that talked about breaking up, they should break them up. They can't get over the hump. They can't do it. They add Drew Holiday, Derek White ascends as a player. They add Porzingis, and then they had the steady pro and Al Horford. To watch them get over the hump and finally win a championship, and then see a young coach like Joe Mazzulla get over the hump, who dealt with a lot of criticism the year before that he couldn't get it done. wasn't the right coach for it. You know, that is a rewarding and a pleasing thing to watch for someone like myself who, you know, again, was an executive, a part of a group that was knocking our heads against the door for a little while and finally getting over the hump. So to watch that group do that probably was my highlight of the 2024 basketball year.
I agree. For me, obviously, as a Celtics fan,
exactly.
as a Celtics fan, but should I tell you from a different angle? Why I like that moment in particular. Number one, all the so-called, in quotation marks, experts picked Dallas to win that final series. They said, "Oh, Boston's gonna choke it." Whether it's former players on TV, whether it's talking heads with an agenda like Nick Wright, they're all saying, "Oh, the Celtics haven't played anyone real." Yeah. You think I forgot? He said, by the time the Celtics play a real opponent in the finals, they're already going to be down 3-1. No, listen, this year was great. And I want to thank everyone who listens to the show. I want to thank BJ, obviously, for being here every day. Scott, for being a regular on this show. He was here every day in the playoffs. He's here every week. You know, CT, Chris Thomas, the NBA trainer, he came in, he held it down. Coach Sir came in, held it down. Chris is with us right now. And, you know, Bart, who's behind the scenes, who works with me on some of these clips that go out on social media. And this season was the first one where we really started getting the recognition for what we're doing, because we live in this age of social media where everything is sensationalism. Everything is a super hot take. Everything is to the extreme. Everything is hating on a player because he's had a bad game. Whereas on this show, we just talk about real basketball, and we keep it the same from show number one all the way to now. We just talking about the game that we love. And this year, you know, people have started to really catch on. Like Chris said, you see the clips all the time now. That goes down to the hard work of the team, but also the listeners who show up here every day. And, you know, shout out to all the new listeners who have found this show. But this year has really proven you're talking about NBA ratings. A big part of that is the way the game has been covered by some of the league's major media partners over the past few years. It's been kind of detrimental to the league. So it's been amazing this year for the fans to realize and the media to realize and whatnot that real basketball conversations still have their place within the NBA landscape. So that's been my highlight of 2024. The Celtics winning the championship was just the icing on the cake. Because BJ, you remember when we were doing TV, Chris and Scott, you wouldn't have seen it because you don't get UK TV over there. I'm on the show every week, and they're asking me about breaking up Tatum and Jaylen Brown for like the last 5 years. And every week I say the same thing. And it was nice to be proven right in the long run. So it's been a great year. Before we get out of here, you know, BJ mentioned, Chris, your cooking skills. I then happened to see a video of your work on the grill. And what's on the menu in the Haynes household? Give the viewers some insight.
Yeah. You know, we gotta bring in the new year, right? You know, so I got a couple slab of ribs, little pork ribs. Put that out there. We got some tri-tip. You know, then the wife go hook up the potato salad. We got some yams in there. We're gonna have some chili beans. What else I'm gonna do? Throw some hot links on the grill because we gotta eat something in the short term. But I smoke it. You know, I smoke it. It's 6 hours. Scott, 6 hours smoke, wood, hickory. What do you prefer, Scott? What's your wood of preference in smoke?
I'm gonna say I like a little hickory.
Okay.
I like a little hickory, but you know, I love you smoking it for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Ooh, that open pit.
Oh,
nothing like it. It's nothing like it.
And then I wrap it up. The last 2 hours, I wrap it up in that foil. And it comes out all tender, breaking up. And I send all my clips. I send all my photos and my videos of me cooking. I sent to BJ.
Hey,
I'm like, look what I'm doing.
Hey, now, Chris, I got one question for you now.
What's up, Scott?
I need to hear about that sauce that goes on the ribs. What kind of sauce? What kind of sauce you putting on the ribs?
Okay, now that's where you got me. So in that area. I'm still a rookie.
Still a rookie?
I need to figure out my own sauce mix, but I'm a bullseye guy myself. I'm a bullseye guy.
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna give a shout out to my guy, and when you see him, because he's an assistant over at Golden State, and every time I see him, because we work together in Detroit, He made the best barbecue ribs that I've had to this day, and his sauce was out. And that is one Jerry Stackhouse.
Really?
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Stack is a major cook.
He been with the smoke.
Yes, Stack can do it.
Okay.
I'm
Is
telling you,
that right?
and this sauce. And every time I said, Stack, let me get that recipe to the sauce. I can't do that for you, Stack. I can't do it. And a hint, he give me a little hint here and there. But
Yeah.
Stack had me going home playing with all kind of, because it's a little sweetness and a little spice, which I like.
You need that.
Yeah. So it's a little sweetness, a little spice. Yeah. I don't want it straight sweet, and I don't want it straight hot. And it's a blend. And man, I played with that for months trying to figure it out. Exactly. Trying to figure it out. Trying to get Stack. Exactly. Yeah. So I'm telling you, Stack could do it. To the grill. So you and BJ have some competition there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna make the circuit. I gotta come see you. And I'm gonna see BJ. I'm gonna see,
Chris is real. Chris is real. Now you know what?
Exactly.
Chris is real on that show. He can cook. My dream would be Chris and I doing the show while we cooking. That would be my dream. That would be
dope.
Now I'm gonna say, I don't want to. You go check with some of the former Piston players. I didn't do the grill like you guys do, but fried little catfish, chicken, all that. Potato salad, all that greens. Now I'm gonna tell you now. Okay, exactly. You can be inside. Exactly.
Scott do that catfish now.
It's not exactly.
That's my favorite.
Look at exactly.
We gotta wrap the show, but I'll go
hold
get
on, Mo. Before we go, Mo, I gotta put all three of y'all on the spot real quick. Now, I gotta ask this question.
Okay.
A game to 50. You gotta give me the score you would think in a 3-on-3 game between my 3 in its prime and BJ's 3 in his prime. A game.
Man.
Wait.
Who gets the ball? Who gets the ball first, Chris? Who gets the ball first? Exactly.
Hold on. I just gave you a monologue about how this show keeps it real, and then you want to ask me about CJ McCollum. With all due respect, CJ McCollum, Dame Lillard, and Brunson, who are great players. But that's Michael Jordan.
All I want is a score. They're going to 50. Give me a score. 50 to what?
If BJ's 3 get the ball first, that's 50-0, because those they ain't getting stopped. They ain't getting stopped. Win a check. They ain't getting stopped.
Exactly. Yeah.
They ain't getting stopped.
Chris started the fight. See why you get Mo started? Mo been
Chris, I'm gonna tell you this: you can take any 2 of BJ's 3 and add me as the 3rd player. We're still winning.
Oh,
exactly.
I'm gonna just stand in the corner, let my dogs go to work. Come on.
Way too much big boy basketball.
But I'll tell you what, Chris. I'm gonna tell you what. You see, I've been waiting for the new year to show you guys the new office. I got some jerseys and some frames too. So you're gonna come back in the new year, and I'm gonna show you my 3. That's going 50 and you're free all over again.
All over again. Hey guys, it was a pleasure being on with y'all, man. I appreciate y'all.
Oh man, absolutely, man. It's so
welcome
great
to the family, Chris.
Time with you, Chris.
Before you get out of here, for any of our fans over here who want to hear more from you, where can they find you? Where can they find your stuff? And where should they be keeping an eye on? Because I know you're a man in demand in the industry right now, and there's going to be a lot of changes over the NBA landscape, media-wise, coming soon. So where can people stay up to date with your movements?
Yeah, as of right now, I'm kind of on my independent note as of right now. So things change quickly in our league, players and media as well. So but as of right now, check me out on Twitter or X at Chris B. Haynes. My Instagram is at Chris B. Haynes NBA. And so the trade deadline is coming up, so it's about to get real busy.
Yeah. Lock in with Chris. He'll be back on the show sometime soon. Scott, BJ, appreciate you as always. Wishing you guys all the best for 2025. To our listeners who have been here all 2024, thank you very much for being on this journey with us. Anyone who's just new to the show, appreciate you coming through. And, you know, we're going to have a whole lot more basketball to talk about in the new year. So tomorrow, I ain't going to lie to you, there ain't going to be an episode tomorrow because tonight's New Year's Eve. You guys talking about your story.
Hey, Scott, what do we say? Let's go. You know the one, Scott. What do you know?
You know the vibes.
You know, I had to put it out there.
You know the vibes.
2 a.m. like whatever games on League Pass. I say, PJ, don't call me tonight. It's New Year's Eve.
Exactly. Yeah. We already know. Hey, Mo, like I told you few shows ago, you tell us if they don't see you, don't look for you.
That's a fact.
Don't look for me. I'm telling you, I'm giving you that line, Mo.
That's a fact. No, I'm using it. I'm using it. Don't worry about us, girl. I mean, I'm using it hearing where I'm using it. You know what I'm saying?
That's great.
But yeah, appreciate you guys. Subscribe to the show, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from. And for another year, you know what we say, get buckets.